Elon's first order ask was, hey, can we come up with a way to publish or create transparency for Bitcoin mining energy usage? I saw something on Twitter today that suggested that Bitcoin is 2 or 3x as sustainable as other energy users. That's the kind of story we need to get out, but we need to legitimize it by having really good data. So I think the first step is let's come up with a protocol for us to publish energy information, and then a way that we can share it with the world, and then work together to make sure that we pursue sustainable energy goals, because that does, because it's true, A. B, because it will actually ensure that the mainstream news cycles are positive and not negative. And that will give institutional investors comfort as they enter the space and not cause them to pause. I think we're going to continue to work on this energy issue to see if we can come up with some way to report Bitcoin's energy usage and keep track of our progress towards sustainability and benchmark us versus other industries, so that we can come up with the right way to communicate this to the rest of the world, and the institutional community and the mainstream media. It's a completely energy focused discussion, and primarily just completely focused upon how we create transparency toward the use of energy, and also I think build confidence in the rest of the world that Bitcoin is not getting dirtier and less energy efficient. Bitcoin is cleaner and more energy efficient, and in fact it is the most efficient use of energy in the world right now. As I've said before, I think it's the most efficient technology for converting energy into prosperity. You know what surprised me is that we've had a non-stop avalanche of good news. David Rubenstein, who's Jerome Powell's famous boss, endorses crypto. Larry Summers, the Secretary of the Treasury, endorses crypto. Goldman Sachs declares, they endorse Bitcoin, right? They're saying that this is a new asset class. Ray Dalio says he'd rather own Bitcoin than bonds, right? Coinbase comes public. An avalanche of really good news. And then I see the volatility in the market all based upon FUD. And the FUD is, first it was the Chinese are mining too much Bitcoin. And then the FUD was sell Bitcoin. And the second FUD was the Chinese are going to stop mining Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin. And then the FUD was, well, you can't buy Bitcoin in China, sell Bitcoin. And then the FUD was, oh, the Chinese reiterated you can't buy Bitcoin in China, sell Bitcoin. And then the FUD was, oh, IRS says you got to pay your taxes, sell Bitcoin. So, and that's the news cycle, right? So I feel like everything's working out great. I mean, if you'd asked me in August, do you expect to get the legitimization of Bitcoin like this? I wouldn't have in my wildest dreams expected so much good news to come. So I think it's going awesome. Just the market's volatile. Bitcoin's one of those stories where if you're only casually interested in it, you just look at the price volatility, and the deeper you look at it, the more you think it's like a generational or a decade-long trade. Last week, I think there are pros and cons. Clearly, there's a bit more volatility, and that would scare away weak non-committal players. But there's a ton of institutions that were very enthusiastic about it that decided they wanted to buy it when it was 30,000 around the beginning of the year. And then they watched to their chagrin as it doubled, and they thought, well, it can't double every quarter forever. It's ahead of itself. And then they stopped and they wouldn't buy. And so in circumstances like that, what you want is a dip where they get to get in at a very good price. And so a lot of people think, oh, the price traded down last week. But if you actually look at the exchange volume on Binance, which is probably the most liquid, greatest statistical example we have, on Black Thursday in March of 2020, Binance, that exchange traded $2 billion in an awful day, the worst day of the year by most people's recollections. On the day when, and it was around 5,000. On the day when MicroStrategy announced our purchase, August 10th, that exchange traded $1 billion of Bitcoin in the day. I think that exchange has traded up to $14 or $15 billion of Bitcoin on some days last week, and traded $60 billion over the course of 6 days. And it's the bottom line. Bitcoin's up by a factor of 4, liquidity is up by a factor of 5 to 8, even 10. And some institutions bought $60 billion of Bitcoin at a good price last week, while someone got panicked over what I view as FUD, and they dumped it too cheap. So, I think what you see is that the long-term players are actually pretty happy to have the opportunity to get into this entry point. And if I was looking at it, the number one thing I'd always look at is the price moving on no volume or on a lot of volume? Because that tells you the institutional sentiment. Elon is a big believer in crypto technology as a force for freedom, and he's a big believer in Bitcoin as a long-term store of value, and he's expressed that sentiment in a number of ways, including taking a multi-billion-dollar position in Bitcoin. I think we all know he expressed a concern that he didn't want to see Bitcoin be the catalyst to bring to life dirty fossil fuels. And that created a bit of a Twitter stir, and that caused Bitcoin to dominate the news cycle all last week across the mainstream media. And I think it became pretty clear that that we have the Bitcoiners, we have a good story, but it's a very complicated story. And we need to find a way to share our story and to educate and get organized. So I think my first thought was, there's no point in us tweeting back and forth at each other, because I don't think 280 character Twitters are right ways to educate the public and build consensus. So I reached out to Elon, and I spoke with him, and we had a very long conversation. And from that, I asked him if he had relationships or had met with the Bitcoin miners. And Elon has expressed, right, on the record, he said he thought we would all benefit if we were able to publish energy usage and source of energy usage data. It turns out that Bitcoin miners don't actually have a good forum for communicating how they generate their energy. We don't have a shared common model for Bitcoin energy usage right now, and we don't have a future forecast model that we commonly use.